All right, these are going to be the players we're absolutely starting this week. We've got a list of 8 players. We're going to draft them in our favorite order. So I get first pick because I talk first. Funny how that works. I'm so privileged. Wow. All right, so my first, I'm going to go with Garrett Wilson here because Garrett Wilson is playing the Los Angeles Chargers. And if you know anything about me, I'm a big Justin Herbert fan. There's baby Herbert right there. And if you know anything about the Chargers, you know that their defense is terrible. You know that they sacrificed giving Justin Herbert somebody who would actually like vibe with him on an offensive level. They sacrificed that to keep a defensive head coach who can't coach defense. They can't coach. I'm looking at the Chargers. The Chargers have given up the 3rd most points to wide receiver this year. You'd think, if somebody's going to go and sacrifice having an offensive coach, they might have a good defense. Wrong. Incorrect. But let's make this about Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson actually hasn't been as bad as we thought he would be when Aaron Rodgers went down with the Achilles. Looking at his last couple games, he played the Giants. He had 17.5 points, 17 points against the Eagles, 8 points against the Denver Broncos, and 15 points against the Kansas City Chiefs. So what does this tell us? It tells us 2 things. Number 1, Garrett Wilson, when Zach Wilson is his quarterback, his ceiling is probably 17 points. That's just what we've seen. And it's usually not going anywhere above that. You're probably not going to get 25-point weeks from Garrett Wilson.
Unless he gets a touchdown.
If there were ever, that's true. There's no touchdowns in any of this game. And He's 1 touchdown away.
Yep.
If he were ever to get that touchdown and to have a good week, because he's getting 13, 12, and 14 targets, I think this is the game. And I think actually looking at his target log, I think he's a must-start every week right now.
Oh, yeah.
In my opinion, because of that target. I mean, you're getting like Deontay Johnson-level targets, like abso-freaking-lutely. So, again, playing a team that's given up a ton of wide receiver points, Garrett Wilson's going to be my number 1 pick to start this week.
Yeah, my second pick here.
Your first, second overall.
Is going to go, my first, second overall pick here is going to be Josh Downs. Playing the Carolina Panthers. Is this anything against the Carolina Panthers as an organization? No. Yes. This is against Frank Reich, who knows every offensive weapon on the Colts offense when they did nothing and when all he did was draft players that were tall and big, and it didn't matter if they could or couldn't move. He doesn't know Josh Downs. He doesn't understand the impact of that type of player, which is why Ballard finally drafted one once Reich was out of the team's decision-making for the draft. So Josh Downs, man, I mean, he's already a must-start, a must-flex option every single week. You're looking at weeks 5 to 8, 15 points, 13, 23, and 14. He's getting some real nice targets there, 6, 8, 6, and 9. That's really nice there towards the end. But Josh Downs, I really see that this week, I see Michael Pittman being the priority defensively for Carolina. They're not going to want to let him beat them because he is a very effective, very good wide receiver in his own right. Jonathan Taylor, even though we do think he'll have a good week, there's probably going to be a lot of eyes on him as well. If somehow Carolina manages to stop Jonathan Taylor, it will be at the expense of allowing Josh Downs to get a lot of good dump-offs, a lot of short to intermediate successful routes and catches, and have some really nice big playability because he is so effective after the catch as well. This, again, is a type of receiver that Indianapolis hasn't had for quite a while, and you're matching him up against a very, very poor defense over the last month. I mean, really since the season started, but overall, man, I love this matchup for him. I think there's going to be a lot of news and focus on a Frank Reich revenge game. And, he's, I'm not against Frank Reich.
I don't even think Frank Reich has the stones to say the word revenge.
I think Josh Downs, there's no stake in the game for Josh Downs outside of him just playing well because he wasn't involved in any of that. Same with Shane Steichen. And I think they're going to be aware of that. I think they're going to know that, and they're going to want to capitalize on that opportunity with Josh Downs, who Reich just isn't familiar with.
If you have a player like Josh Downs, who's a rookie, number 1, but scores a touchdown 2 weeks in a row and has big weeks, but then doesn't score a touchdown, still gets 9 targets and still scores 14 fantasy points, I'm really, really happy with that.
Yep.
All right, I'm going to go next here, and I'm going to take Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs.
Well, the other Josh.
Yeah, the other Josh on this list. Honestly, there have been weeks he's been disappointing, and you look at his last 4 weeks, and it's kind of been like, he's gotten 27 points versus the Chargers. Like, okay, Josh Jacobs is back. And then he had 19. It's like, all right, Josh Jacobs, he's still back. And then he had 11, and we're like, okay, Josh Jacobs, he's okay now. And then he had 5, and we're like, you were playing the Bears, dude. Are you serious? Yeah, it's concerning. And obviously the targets have continued to decrease. However, Josh Jacobs playing the Giants. The Giants have given up the 11th most points against the running back this year. And you look at some of the individual matchups against the Giants that we've seen. Tony Pollard, Devon Achane, Christian McCaffrey all had over 20 points. And you have guys like Breece Hall, James Conner, Raheem Mostert, and Kenneth Walker also well into double digits there in scoring. So I do think that Josh Jacobs, he's always one touchdown away. And you look at the decrease in points, you also see the decrease in targets and the decrease in touchdowns. With the high scoring running backs in PPR leagues, it's typically those two things you see. Targets and receptions and touchdowns. So if he does end up getting even more than 5-6 receptions and has a touchdown, you're talking about him scoring 20 points again. It's every week.
Yeah.
So now, while that hasn't happened every week and the Raiders have been very underwhelming and Josh McDaniel cannot coach at all, him and Frank Reich should go start a club called We Can't Coach. Because of that, he's been a little bit disappointing. This week, I think he gets it back on track, and I'm going Josh Jacobs.
Yeah, a guy that I think is going to continue his relative success compared to the start of the season because he wasn't even on a team is Kareem Hunt. Wow. And when you're looking at Kareem Hunt from week 6 to 8, against very solid run defenses, I guess with the exception of Seattle. Seattle's okay, but San Fran, he puts up 16 points with a touchdown. Plays the Colts, 10 carries and 2 touchdowns. And then Seattle, he gets another touchdown off of 14 carries. I'm not as excited about his receiving usage and the overall volume that he's getting. What I care about are the goal line opportunities. And when you pair that with a bad run defense, as it is the worst run defense that Cleveland has faced in a month, I think that makes for a really nice matchup for Kareem Hunt, a very under-the-radar matchup, I would say. I mean, you're looking at the goal line carries that Kareem Hunt had compared to Jerome Ford and Pierre Strong in Week 8 against Seattle. He had all of them. He is clearly their red zone back. He's clearly the guy that the Browns want to lean on in short yardage situations. And when you want to punch it in, when you want to punch it past the first down marker, when you want to punch it into the end zone, like Kareem Hunt is going to be your guy. So overall, yeah, touchdowns are volatile. Touchdowns you can't necessarily predict, but I think of all the running backs you could predict a touchdown for, it would be Kareem Hunt with this specific matchup playing against the Arizona Cardinals, who have time and time again demonstrated that they let running backs run all over them. Christian McCaffrey. Okay, yeah, Christian McCaffrey, a lot better than Kareem Hunt. He puts up 48 points. But let's go down the line here. Gus Edwards. We said touchdowns are volatile. I don't think they are against Arizona. Gus Edwards managed 3 of them. Scored 29 points. Gus Edwards and Kareem Hunt are on the same level from a talent perspective at this point in their respective careers. Saquon Barkley, 27. Kyron Williams, 21. Tony Pollard, 15. Rico Dowdle, 13. B-Rob, 13. Mixon, 13. Kenneth Walker. Like, the floor is 13 points for Kareem Hunt. That's if he has a bad day. That's a real safe floor for a nice, sneaky flex option.
All right, this might be controversial. I'm actually going to go Romeo Doubs here. What I don't like from Romeo Doubs in the last couple weeks.
I like that pick. 11
points each of the last 2 weeks, and he had a touchdown. So you're talking about if he doesn't get that touchdown, he has 5 points. Mm-hmm. I don't like that. I do like that he got 9 targets, but I don't like that he only hauled in 4 of them. Jordan Love's been really bad. I don't like that either. But I'm looking at one thing. I'm looking at the box score from the Rams-Cowboys game this week, and I'm looking right at CeeDee Lamb. Not that Romeo Doubs is a CeeDee Lamb level receiver, because he's clearly not. But he is the alpha receiver on the Packers. No arguments to be made by Christian Watson truthers, I don't think. Oof. And honestly, the Rams secondary has been fairly poor this year. I believe in almost any receiver-quarterback combination to tear up that secondary. And I think this is the week maybe where Jordan Love has a little bit of a bounce back with the help of Romeo Doubs, who goes into L.A. and beats them up. Obviously, Romeo Doubs is a route runner we're not super-duper impressed with. However, he has been good this year. He has gotten the most targets this year. He has been the highest fantasy producing wide receiver in Green Bay, and I like that matchup so much. I think the Rams are a matchup in fantasy to start exploding, so I'm going to go Romeo Doubs.
Yeah, completely agree with you there, and I'll take the next guy here that honestly I could have gone with instead of Kareem Hunt, but we're going to go with Joe Mixon. And the reason I didn't pick Joe Mixon early is just because we are just now seeing him finally get the touchdowns that we wanted him to, finally capitalizing on the constant red zone opportunities he's been getting and hasn't been able to capitalize. He finally does against the most unsuspecting defense, the San Francisco 49ers run defense. Like, this is something that we didn't see coming. I mean, I didn't even start Joe Mixon in a couple leagues because I didn't think he was going to do well. Like, I thought he was going to lay a dud. No, he ends up getting 16 carries for 87 yards. By far, his most efficient game of the year, 5.5 yards per carry. Gets that touchdown finally. And then he continues to get some nice receiving usage as well. 3 targets, 3 receptions, gets all of them for 23 yards. I mean, that's an extra 5 points you're looking at in PPR leagues. That is incredibly incredibly impactful in PPR leagues for anyone who owns Joe Mixon. That results in a very nice floor when you look at the usage he's getting in the run game on top of those consistent 3 to 4 targets where he's hauling in a majority of them. Like you have a really, really comfortable floor that you're dealing with Joe Mixon. He's been a disappointment and he's still putting up no less than 10 to 13 points. So you're looking at this next matchup where they're matching up against the Bills. And yes, anytime you say the Bills, everyone's just objectively says, as a blanket statement, oh, the Bills defense, they're so good. Yeah, they were to begin the season.
They were 2 years ago.
They were 2 years ago too. Do you know how many injuries they have suffered through the first half of this year?
Numerous.
Like devastating.
Some.
If you were to pick the top 4 producing or the top 4 most impactful players for the Bills, it would be Allen, it would be Diggs, and then it would be their best 2 defenders on the other side of the ball who both went down within the first 4 weeks of the season.
It's important context, guys.
That's very, very important to note. So since then, the Bills, 9th most points given up to running backs, 6th most receptions, and 4th most receiving yards to running backs. ETN gets 36 points in that London game. Devon Achane, 27 points. Rashad White, who basically has Mixon's receiving usage minus his run game effectiveness, still puts up 17 points. Breece Hall, 15. Ramondre, 14. Saquon Barkley, 13. Again, this is another situation where you're like, at the very least, at the very worst case scenario possibility for Joe Mixon, he puts up 13 to 15 points. You're very, very comfortable with that opportunity.
I'm going to go Michael Thomas here with the second to last pick. Michael Thomas, not the 25, 30-point receiving game guy that we knew. He was obviously capable of that ceiling early in his career. Yeah.
I miss that Michael Thomas.
I do too. But that's not it. However, what Michael Thomas is freaking consistent.
Yep.
Fun fact of the day, Michael Thomas has been between 9.5 and 13.2 points in every single game of the season.
Wow.
Isn't that within 4 points? And that's, again, that's like the sweet spot flex range.
That's a fun fact right there, man.
I'm going to make a prediction on the show. A very bold one. I'm going to say this week, playing the Chicago Bears, he has the upper end of anywhere from 9.5 to 13.2 points.
Maybe even 15.
No, that's pretty risky. Like I'm going to stay, it's bold. I'm going to say he's going to get like 13 points this week. And
dude,
it'll be interesting to see if it plays out.
What are you smoking?
I don't know. Not much more. I have to support my argument with. I don't think Michael Thomas is clearly very safe, so I'm comfortable flexing him.
That's the definition of safe right there. And in matchups with bye weeks and injuries, you're just looking for safety for someone not to lay a goose egg. Yep. Michael Thomas will not lay a goose egg, that's for sure. And now Derek Carr can actually throw the ball, and he decided that he can take shots downfield, and it had to be the week they played the Colts.
Hey, if Taysom Hill has the ball, what's he doing?
Running the ball!
I just wanted.
Oh my gosh!
I just wanted him to get mad.
I lost my mind. I yelled at the TV. I rarely yell at the TV. I yelled.
Nathan is very polite to his TVs.
Nico Collins is going to be our last guy here. Do we love Nico Collins? Are we super high on Nico Collins? Not really.
I'm just kidding.
Were we fooled by Nico Collins to begin the season like everyone else?
No.
Actually, we kind of were.
I'm kidding,
there.
Nathan. I'm just saying the opposite of what you're
okay.
If you're going to do the rhetorical questions, I'm going to screw with you.
Over the last month, Atlanta, 6 points, 4 targets. 12 points against New Orleans, 6 targets. 7 points, 6 targets against Carolina. I'm going to bet that he probably gets at least 6 targets in what is a better matchup for him this week. The Bucs, 9th most points given up against wide receivers. So you're looking at, a top third of the league matchup from a wide receiver perspective when it comes to production for Nico Collins. And I would count on him over someone like Tank Dell, who's been even more inconsistent than Nico Collins, over someone like Noah Brown, who came out of nowhere last week and only put up 8 points. And that was just kind of a fluky game anyways. Like no one could do anything offensively on either side of the ball there. I feel like both QBs just didn't want to be labeled as the ones who were worse than the other, so they both were just kind of mid. Yeah. But outside of that, man, I think Nico Collins is going to be one of those last guys, one of those options where you say, hey, let's look at these matchups. Let's see what guy is not going to completely lay a dud and completely screw me over in my flex spot. And Nico Collins is going to be a guy that you'll be able to rely on, will provide, I think, a very safe, a very nice floor for. And Houston's offense will probably be able to bounce back and put up some points against a Tampa Bay defense that, across the board is better than Carolina. And you could be a little concerned about their offensive performance against Carolina. But I think that, again, was just kind of a fluky game compared to what they've been doing overall in general this season.
All right. If you enjoyed the video, or if you play fantasy football or both, please do us a huge favor. Hit that thumbs up, and also subscribe, because your thumb is weird, because we are putting out fantasy football content this season into next season. We're a fantasy football channel, so we'd love to have you join the community. Also, if you want to join the majority of our community over at flockfantasy.com/domain. You get in our Discord, you get our rest of season rankings, a ton of other perks. So flockfantasy.com/domain, use code domain for 30% off and to get all of our exclusives. Appreciate you guys so much. Thanks for joining us today. We'll see you later.